Welcome to the program agenda. A pleasant day to all of you. I'm your host, Cito Beltran, welcoming you on board. And today, July 19, 2022, it's a Tuesday. We are going to talk about a specific topic. It's all about tourism and what should the priorities be because clearly, the Department of Tourism has made an initial announcement or concern regarding airports in reaction to President BBM's instructions of improving the tourist experience by developing infrastructures. Now, we will speak to tourism stakeholders, mga taong halubilo, nakikipag-usap lagi sa mga turista, both local and international. And we will ask them for their inputs because that seems to be the initial problem at the moment. There are government officials making pronouncements but lacking sorely in public consultation. Let's find out if that has been the case in the tourism sector. But before that, let's go to our daily starter from Craig Rochelle. Okay, Craig Rochelle is a pastor and a leadership guru. Perfection is the enemy of progress. It is a very timely daily starter because many leaders, many executives, even parents put so much emphasis on perfection that there is no progression. Pati nga yung piano teacher kong si Dea, pine-perfect lagi yung timing ko. Sabi ko, tigil mo yung timing mo, binabasa ko pa yung nota. Okay, so that's just a good reminder, even for policy making. Let's not go for perfection because nothing will ever be perfect, okay? And it is the enemy of progress. Let's go to the front page of the Philippine Star. And let's find out. There we go. The headlines, the Office of the Solicitor General mulls challenge to ICC jurisdiction in the Philippines. If you will recall, the Philippines removed itself from the jurisdiction of the International Court and has claimed that they're not part of it, and therefore the ICC has no coverage. The International Criminal Court has no jurisdiction over the Philippines. But the ICC says, too late, sumama kayo, magdusa kayo. Okay, but Solicitor General and former Secretary of Justice Maynard Guevara has said that they are considering challenging the jurisdiction of the ICC regarding the Duterte drug war campaign. Okay, our thoughts on that, magpaalam muna kayo sa bago ninyong amo, bago kayo magsalita. Okay? Because that, once again, is the new problem of this new administration. The cabinet members keep talking without asking permission from BBM. Bago na po ang boss nyo. At the top of the front page, Metro COVID positivity rate jumps from 10 to 12%. 5 provinces high. High na po sila sa COVID. And please be careful because COVID is still our biggest threat. Okay, but please, warning to people who constantly are so concerned for their friends, they keep sharing anything they come across na kumbaga babala. But it seems that people have been sharing these warnings that turn out to be alarmist in nature. Sabi ng DOH, there is no truth to some of the latest posts that exaggerates COVID-19. Okay, for those of you who are starstruck, okay, medyo J-Lo and Ben Affleck got married recently. Drive-thru. Parang McDonald's and Jollibee. Din drive-thru lang yung kasal. Kanya yung mga kasalan na yan, drive out din pag hindi nag-succeed. Okay. The Civil Service Commission to help workers affected by right sizing. The CSC has given assurance that it will help state workers who might be affected by the right sizing. We've been tackling that the last few days. BBM to Department of Agriculture execs draft farm to market road plan. Ang ibig pong sabihin ni President Bongbong Marcos is a plan, isang plano kung paano how the farmers' products will get to the right markets. Warning to the DA executives, hindi po kayo pinagagawa ng kalsada. Baka akala nyo, sinasabihan kayong gumawa kayo ng farm-to-market road. No. And I'm not trying to insult your intelligence, but there are people taking BBM's instructions literally. But that's a good plan. The question is, will it happen? Okay. Price rollback of gasoline. Nakikita ninyo yung center page of the Philippine Star photo. Price rollback, gasoline down by 5 pesos. Diesel down by 2 pesos. Magpakarga na kayo. Pero huwag kayong full tank tapos hindi kayo gagalaw. Hindi kayo aalis. Baka mapanis. And I'm not kidding. I'm serious, ladies and gentlemen, because we have ethanol mix in our fuels. If you keep that fuel there for months, you are going to regret that. Mechanically, your mechanic will charge you a lot of money to fix your car. Okay, protecting West Philippine Sea using arbitral ruling tops the Department of National Defense agenda. Ipagtatanggol nila ang Pilipinas base sa arbitral ruling. And that other photo at the right side of the lower part of the Philippine Star is a canine dog na pagod nang nakaparade, naka-attention at gusto nang mag-parade rest dahil nakuna niyan sa picture while incoming or new National Security Advisor Clarita Carlos visited the Philippine Coast Guard. At the bottom left, you have Cynthia Villar receiving one of so many plaques of recognition from the DNR regarding the Environmental Summit and Exhibit 2022 at the Manila Hotel. Last but not the least, ito po importante. Dapat ito ang headline. Okay? Uniforms not required in public schools. Thank you very much, Madam Vice President and Secretary Sara Duterte of the DepEd, because we have long been pushing that in public schools there should be no uniform kasi perwisyo at parusa sa mga anak yan ng mga tiga-barangay sa probinsya. And I know what I'm talking about. Okay, let's now go to our main topic. Pero hindi ko lang alam kung paghihiwalayin ko sila o pagda-drive-thru ko sila sa interview natin. Okay? We are going to talk about tourism today, and we have invited two guests. Let's bring in, let's show their introductory video first.
Jose Clemente III is the president of the Tourism Congress of the Philippines. Clemente has been involved in the tourism industry for over 20 years. He currently teaches travel and tourism operations at Enduran colleges, focusing on the ins and outs tour operations and travel agencies. Clemente is also the managing director of World Walker Destinations. Tet Romualdo's career in the hospitality industry spans over 22 years. She started with Oakwood Premier Ayala Center and later joining Best Western Hotel La Corona and the Linden Suites, where she now serves as general manager. Romualdo is concurrently the director for membership at the Hotel Sales and Marketing Association. She also holds a Master in Business Administration or MBA degree from the Ateneo Graduate School of Business.
Okay, welcome Mr. Clemente and Miss Romualdo. Return of the comeback kayong pareho dahil dito sa agenda, mahal namin ang tourism sector. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Thank you, Sir Cito, for inviting us once again on your show.
Okay, now let me start with Mr. Clemente because Joe is the president of the Tourism Congress of the Philippines. Anyway, this is conversation, no? Hindi Q&A. The reason I asked for this topic to be featured on agenda is because during the campaign, there was so much talk about local tourism being the hope of the economy, a potential income generator, job generator, etc. And then suddenly, with the entry of the new Secretary of Tourism, nagkaroon ng pronouncement. Their first pronouncement, I think, was about airports, about the standardization, upgrade quality of airports. Sabi ko, teka, anong connection ng airport sa turismo at sa local tourism? Anyway, Joe, what can you say about this?
Cito, ang airports naman natin have really been one of the biggest concerns that we've had even long before. Yan kasi yung unang impression when tourists come in. As we go to other countries, alam naman natin that airports play a big part. It sets the impression, it sets a tone of your trip. And aminado naman tayo, our airport terminals here in Manila are really in bad need of renovation, refurbishment. Plus, in relation to that, we should make it easier. We should have bigger airports now, considering that the Philippines was on an upward trend prior to the pandemic. So we are looking at being able to accommodate the tourists again once things start to recover by 2023, 24, 25. We should have room for expansion already as far as our airports are concerned. Maganda that we've already opened Clark also, which is a very beautiful airport. And if we can do something like that here in the main cities of Metro Manila, then it really will help us to attract more tourists to come.
Yeah, but should the infrastructure come before the actual tourists? Because Tet, I don't know what your experience is, Tet, but when all of this discussion happened, people were talking about local tourism and puro tayo airport pero may bus, mayroong barko, may ferry boats, etc. Ano ba ang experience mo, Tet? What have you seen, heard from tourists and travelers?
Basically, Sir Cito, aside from the airport, really, the significant challenge in the last 2 years of traveler has been the ever-changing patchwork approach to travel policies. So I think that the swift recovery of tourism industry will only be possible aside from the continuous improvement of tourism infrastructure is the coordinated response to the resumption of travel of the leaders and public officials, which include providing clear roadmaps, rules, and mobility protocols so that it will provide certainty and restore consumer confidence.
Okay, but has the tourism sector, the Hotel Sales and Marketing Association, the Congress, Tourism Congress, have any of you been invited to a town hall meeting, to a consultative meeting, etc.?
As of now, Cito, I think the only meeting or consultative meeting I've read about is yung I think what the new secretary says are her listening tours, which ang alam ko lang has happened in the Visayas region. So Dito sa Metro Manila, wala pa. In Mindanao, I'm not sure. Parang wala pa rin yata. So, we're giving time for the secretary to settle down and probably get her priorities in place before she meets with us also. It gives us also time to prepare kung ano yung wish list namin. And
Ted?
and yeah, and if I sorry, Sita, if I may go back
Yeah.
also to the airport thing. In relation to the airport and following what Ted mentioned, one of the things that we would want to see is more ease of accessibility for tourists to enter the Philippines. That addresses your question about turista. As of now kasi, even before the pandemic, there are certain countries that sasabihin natin mahirap talagang kumuha ng visa to enter the Philippines, no? And these are big markets like India. Hindi tayo makabuelo like other countries here in the ASEAN because they basically have a easier entry policy. So sometimes we still have archaic immigration or visa rules that sort of hamper the markets that we would want to enter the Philippines. Sana maayos yan, no, during this administration.
Yeah.
Matagal na
Okay.
rin namin hinihingi yun.
Yeah, Ted, how about your group? Has your group or the hotel group been invited or has been consulted regarding what new policies to come up?
As far as HSMA concerned, not yet, Sir Tito, but we are also scheduling a meeting with the new Tourism Secretary, Secretary Franco. We have heard she's doing some rounds and talking to several local government units because she's pursuing a tourism that is inclusive and a listening one. So we're looking forward to our schedule of meeting with her soon.
Okay, what proposals are you pushing for, or what suggestions will you be making to the incoming Secretary Cristina Frasco?
Well, we would like to push aside from the above mentioned uniform protocol, is the digitalization of travel and tourism product. We've heard concerns from travelers that they've been using several app that has not been utilized or not functioning well. So we should have one working, synchronized, and they can be used to wherever they go in the countries. And we're also hoping that,
Ted, could we be specific? We have time anyway, Joe, Ted, no? We have time. But para hopefully there might be someone at the DOT who will watch this later. And because I'm not trying to be critical of the DOT. But it would be good if there is consultation, and in lieu of the limited time that the secretary may have or resources, at least baka habang nakahiga siya sa bahay niya paggabi, nagpapahinga, pwede siyang manood ano ba yung inputs ng ibang sector. So, Tet, specific, this digitalization. Kasi paano, how can we talk about digitalization when for the longest time, for 2 administrations, we have been telling the DOTR na kung pwede lang yung schedule ng bus, schedule ng barko, at schedule ng eroplano, masunod. What digitalization are you referring to, Ted?
Well, one specific instance is the contact tracing, right? We've heard foreigners coming in and, they've been saying that they've been required different kind of app or different kind of QR codes wherever they go in the country. So at least if we have one that they can use wherever they go, that would make their travel seamless and more friendly for them. So that's one. Maybe the booster or the ID that they can use also whenever they go to different tourism establishments. And also if they can have one app that will show all the protocols, because right now the challenge is we have different protocols, right? During the pandemic, each provinces have different protocols which make them confused whenever they travel around. So if I know it might not be possible to have one because each provinces has different medical capacity, and that's why they're having different protocols. But if that could be simplified, then that would be a big help.
Well, I guess one example for that, Ted, Joe, is my personal experience at the Boracay at the Katiklan Airport. where Panay, dahil Aklan has a requirement regarding QR codes, etc. And then pagdating namin doon, sabi ko, pwede ba makita yung computer ninyo? Kasi china-challenge ninyo yung QR code ng kasama namin sa mobile phones namin, lahat approved. Eh sabi sa akin, sir, wala pong computer dito, ginagamit ko lang yung personal cellphone ko. And this is a person representing the province. I mean, it's, and then when we were leaving, we were very concerned because we had extended our stay. So we were concerned na baka pagdating sa airport, i-challenge yung QR code namin. I literally had to reach out to the Secretary of the Department of Tourism just to make sure hindi kami ma-stop sa airport. And it turns out, bali wala naman pala sa airport, hindi na raw kailangan. Anyway, Joe, your insights, please.
Well, in relation to sinabi ni Tet, we want sana an integrated contact tracing app that will cover. Kasi yung mga turista, kunyari parating dito, they already fill out the One Health Pass. So when they fill that out, dapat okay na yan when you go around the country. Kasi andun na lahat ng information na kailangan eh.
Correct.
We still see some of the LGUs, as you mentioned, Boracay, they still have their own QR code na parang double parang redundant na eh. And I was in a technical working group meeting, sub-technical working group ng IATF, and it seems to be that there is one department that's really been lagging as far as the transition is concerned, the integration. So, yan yung mga bagay na the DOT may want it, but because of another agency's, sabihin na natin, slowness in trying to do it, naantala yung buong programa. So, sometimes the DOT will say something that they want to happen, pero some people forget that it's not only the DOTs that in charge of it,
Yeah.
Again,
In fairness to DOT, apektado sila ng DOTR, ng DICT, ng DPWH, DILG.
Immigration, lahat yan. Katulad ng mga expat dati, during the pandemic, hindi makapasok, hindi makabalik dito para ma-meet yung mga fiancés nila. They say love is not tourism. Yun yung hashtag. But I had to keep reminding some of them, hindi naman DOT ang magsasabi kung sinong papasok at hindi eh. It's DFA, it's BI, it's quarantine. So maraming misconception as to what DOT can and cannot do. Some of the other, going back to your question, ano pa yung mga iba nating gustong makita, and I think Secretary Frasco already mentioned that tourism infrastructure will be a priority during her term. So okay kami dyan kasi kulang na kulang pa rin until now ang infrastructure for tourism.
Okay. Joe, Tet, can you elaborate on that please? Kasi pasensya na kayo, Ako yung nag-umpisa ako sa tourism with Backpackers Anonymous eh. 'Di ba? Kumbaga, kung may bangkang masasakyan, kung may jeepney masasakyan, larga, sakay tayo sa batil, yung kahoy na barko. But in this modern day of tourism, what do you mean by infrastructure?
I'll give you an example, Cito. We're positioning the Philippines as a cruise destination for the major shipping companies. I mean, the major cruise companies. But when you go around the country, ilang pier lang ba ang meron tayo? And if you think about it, and if you've taken a cruise before, when you go to other countries that promote cruise tourism, ang gaganda ng mga passenger terminals nila. When they come into Manila, doon sila sa North Harbor na walang kalaman-laman, and it looks like a cargo.
It is a cargo port.
Yeah. So it's hardly suitable.
Tsaka Subic.
Really. Oo. Subic, medyo okay, pero we could do more as far as...
Okay, that's a good example. Tet, example on infrastructure development.
Well, aside from Sir Jojo mentioned, the current capacity of our airline, our airports should be enhanced because we all experience delays during our flight, and sometimes airlines keep mentioning it's the capacity. We were not allowed to ship on time, so that one should be a priority. We have an existing airport, but it's not enough to accommodate the growth that we are looking forward to.
Yeah, pero yung isang mamang kilala ko na naggagawa ng napakalaking four-runway airport sa Bulacan, nagsabi na nga, pag ako naasar, nagbakasyon na lang ako because building an airport is so full of obstruction, challenges, etc. But instead, but let's go back to the premise, the initial premise. The word was we will start with local first because that's what we have.
Okay.
We have the facilities local. What are your thoughts on which should come first, local or international? If you both will say dapat may mix, what is the ideal mix?
Well, domestic has been, our lifesaver during the first few months when the quarantine was canceled. Especially here in NCR, we used to be a quarantine. Most of the hotels here are quarantine facilities. But in February, that was put into halt because it's no longer required for fully vaccinated individuals. So can you imagine the stress we felt at the time, when 80% of our market is quarantine, and then we shifted to non-quarantine market, and that's where the domestic market comes into play and really help us survive in the first few months of the year. And we saw, they call it revenge travel. Our weekend, most of our weekend was full because of these families, these mercadas who wanted to go outside, spend some time with their families and friends outside of their homes. And this really helped us. And
ironically, we seem to be forgetting all of that. Na ang nakasalba ng tourism, what saved Philippine tourism was the local market, Filipinos traveling. What needs to be done to honor that? Kasi I've been saying that may pera naman ang Pilipino Just give us a reason and a place to go and make it reasonable, not necessarily cheap, but reasonable or affordable and not a pain in the behind.
I guess Cito naman, in fairness also to our partners, like the resorts and the hotels, naglabas naman sila there. They're coming out with very good promo rates actually, which are lower than what we offer our foreign guests. So, pero syempre with the situation going on right now with fuel prices and all of that, tinatamaan na rin sila. The prices of goods are going up. Yung airfares natin are also going up. So, parang hindi rin maiwasan magtaas minsan. And to address what you said about the balance of domestic and international, tama si Tet, no? Domestic travel talaga ang nagsalba sa tourism industry in the early days of our reopening. That said, we should not also forget that the foreign tourists are also coming in. We were quite surprised nung sinabing Feb 10 magbubukas na tayo, biglang dumagsa yung inquiries namin. So it means to say that the Philippines remained on top of their consciousness once travel would reopen. Now, putting that into the context of what's happening right now, it's also advantageous for us to keep on promoting to international markets kasi kailangan natin ng Forex You always talk about the ballooning debt and we will be needing Forex to service those loans. And what would be the fastest and easiest ways to bring in Forex? Tourism is that. So I think it's time that the government really takes a good look at tourism as a real economic driver. Dati kasi ang perception sa tourism, and Tet, I don't know if you agree with me, tingin lang sa amin parang glamour industry lang kami But prior to the pandemic, 2019, we were almost 13% of GDP. Right. Almost 3 trillion pesos contribution to the national revenue.
How much of that was local?
Well, about 75% of it was local.
Okay. And right now, where are we in comparison to pre-pandemic statistics?
Malayo pa Cito. Last stats that I saw, we were just about to hit 1 million foreign arrivals.
And Filipino travels?
Yun ang wala pa kong stats, but it's bigger than that, definitely. Bigger than 1 million so far. Kasi nung binuksan natin, instinct kagad ng Pilipino, I want to go to Boracay, I want to go to Palawan, I want to go to all of these places. And they did. Kaya ngayon makikita natin punuan ng mga airlines din. And the resorts and the hotels, depending on the destination, naglalabas sila yung what we call yung mga blackout dates nila, meaning to say, puno sila. And
Yeah.
ngayon, padami na ng padami yung mga blackout dates nila. So meaning to say, it's moving along.
Okay.
Pero wala pa rin tayo sa levels ng 2019.
Yeah, Tet, how would you approach this situation? Because there are people who said, nandito tayo sa Pilipinas, i-push muna natin local tourism. Yung mga foreigners, they will ultimately come. Sabi nga, ano ba yung movie? If you build it, they will come.
Field of Dreams.
Puro Field of Dreams, di ba? Puro Field of Dreams yung mga airport sa Pilipinas. Mahabang panaginip. But what do we do with what we have? How do we approach it, Tet?
Well, aside from coming with enticing promotions to attract our local market, we the hotels continue to offer safe travel experience. I think it has been ito na yung nag-shift ngayon, Sir Cito, priority pa rin ng safe travel, mga protocols sa hotels, dapat hindi siya mawawala because as we all are mentioning, andito pa rin naman yung COVID. So we must continue to be careful with our dealing and to continue a safe travel experience for our guests. In fact, what worries now is, diba, nag-i-increase yung COVID and, it can change again the policy of the government. But we hope that we can learn how to coexist with this virus and manage the risk.
Okay, let's go for a quick break. When we come back, let's tackle one by one concerns that both of you have heard from tourists and from organizations and suggestions. Yung ika nga working mode na tayo when we come back right after this break. Welcome back to the program Agenda. Thank you for joining us once again and staying with us, and also for being subscribers of Cignal TV channels 8 and 250, also to PLDT Home Fiber Optic Internet for their continued efficiency and consistency for our program. Okay. Now, nagbabayad ako. Hindi po yun, hindi po yung paid commercial. I just really appreciate the service. Kasi marami sa inyo, ayaw nyo magkabit ng fiber optic tapos nagko-complain kayo. Okay, anyway. Baka sabihin, nag-editorialize ako. Welcome back, Tet Romualdo and Jojo Clemente. Na Joe Clemente ako ng Joe Clemente. Sorry, Jojo. Okay.
My dad.
Yeah, your dad. Anyway, let's go one by one. In order to achieve the goals of the DOT, I'm reading this. The DOT laid down the following objectives: improve tourism and infrastructure and accessibility. Now, we always seem to connect accessibility with airports, seaports, etc. But nobody discusses price. And I was talking to a very big businessman who understands the industry and airports and airlines. And sabi niya, Cito, have you ever noticed how our local flights cost the same as going to Singapore, Hong Kong, etc.? So accessibility has nothing to do with airport, but with airfare. What say you, Tet and Jojo?
Well, I agree. But that is something, well, maybe beyond our control, but it should be reviewed also because, again, the increasing prices of airfare will affect the travel, the desire to travel locally. True. If it's the same, then might as well travel abroad. But I hope that this would be regulated. And aside from that, aside from the fare, we should also look into the local transportation because well, I just had a meeting with our transportation partner, and they plan to increase the price of their fare from airport to hotel to like 40% increase. And then I tried to control because I said to him that it will not entice a traveler to go to our hotel because the cost of transportation is the same as a room night cost. So I hope there's a better, means of transportation to where the hotel guests can use to travel around the city and travel around the country.
Having said that, Tet, and Jojo join in lang. Having said that, are we once again back during, kumbaga, di ba, COVID pandemic period, the last 18 months, the tourism sector really suffered, and you had to survive by having long-term guests na mura. You brought down hotel rates to bare bones. Other tourism destinations had to lay off people or rotate employees, etc. Given the devaluation of the peso, which they said could hit 60, $1 to 60, and then given the insane prices of fuel, food crisis, etc., are we now facing another a tourism pandemic, so to speak?
It can be, pero as of now, what we're seeing is that demand is still quite active, no? But as you mentioned, I'm being fearful about what threshold tourists will have as far as saying that I will still continue to travel. Kasi yun na nga, pataas ang presyo. As of now, they're still taking the fuel surcharges, they're still taking the higher airfares. Pero as if it continues to go up in the pace that it has continued to go up, baka malapit na yung threshold wherein they'll just say, never mind, I'll just do it next time. Pag medyo bumaba na, let's say if you're from Europe, I'll just do inter-Europe travel na lang muna, or at the very least go to the US for my vacation, which is cheaper. So yan yung isang binabantayan namin.
Sorry, Jojo, how will you guys deal with this? Will you be
Okay.
forced to go back to tama na kami sa break-even, or we will just have to cut to the bone, etc.? Because that was what happened in the COVID pandemic. If we have a tourism pandemic, Tet, are you going to be forced to do that again?
Well, it's actually a weekly balancing act sa atin, because we check because of the increasing price of raw materials, not only food but even the hotel supplies, all of them are increasing. So we have to to determine the optimal price that the guests or foreign or international local tourists are willing to spend. So we cannot price it too high that it will discourage them not to stay. So, but it should remain competitive also.
Yeah, so that people know, ladies and gentlemen, nagbabayad po ng kuryente directly or indirectly ang hotel. They pay for food, they pay for employees, they pay for maintenance, they pay taxes, etc., etc. So at the end of the day, you guys make very little, especially because of the fuel surcharges reducing your market.
Initially, Cito, no, nung exchange rate natin was getting higher, meaning to say from 55 to 56, ganon.
Yeah.
Okay lang sa amin yon because it makes our products cheaper.
Yes.
When we do our costings, it becomes cheaper. But then again, on the side naman ng ang suppliers namin, like the hotels and the resorts, some of them are now being forced to sort of hike their rates a little bit to keep up with the expenses then that they're incurring. So it wipes out whatever potential gains there were with the better, for us, the better exchange rate, ika nga, no?
Okay.
Yeah.
Going back to alternative, to infrastructure, travel, etc. What about the alternatives? Because like Boracay, for instance, I prayed to God and I prayed this government would develop other places, not just Boracay. Kasi marami naman. We have so many island destinations, tourism destinations, but everyone just seems to go to the first thought, okay? First thought, top of mind. But I have been promoting to people, take the ferry from Batangas Pier, etc. We have been telling but I've also discovered this, Jojo and Tet, not just for tourism, but for local business. Many companies have stopped flying. They have decided it's cheaper to put 4 employees on a car to go to Ilocos Norte than to put them on a flight. So, bandang huli, it will come back to bite the airlines. What about in the travel industry? Are you developing, suggestions to your customers? For those of you, you can take land, you can take a boat, etc.
What we tell them, no, yung mga gustong magbiyahe, kung gusto nyong makatipid muna, try muna yung mga land-based, as you mentioned, no? Go to Baguio, go to La Union, go down south to, even to Bicol, as far as Bicol. Baka mas mura pa din yung gagastusin nila sa gasolina kaysa sa airfare. I'm glad you also mentioned the sea lanes, no? The Philippines being an archipelago, it makes total sense to have like all of these ocean-going craft. Kung magkaroon ka ng inter-island cruises, more ro-ro providers, more inter-island transportation. Kasi minsan, we're still in a situation wherein, kunyari, you're in one place, you still have to fly back to Manila and then take another flight going back to an area which is quite near where you were in the first place. Pero dahil wala kang transportation, you incur a higher cost. So, yun din sanang gusto namin is that for people, no, to invest in putting up all of these other modes of transportation, and for the government to make it easier for them. So that's maybe one thing na if we can ask the government through the DOT and through the other attached to the other agencies, sana gawin nating madali para makapagtayo ng ganyang negosyo, because once you start doing that, the economy will the economy will benefit from it.
Yeah. Tet, you wanted to say something?
Yeah. since you mentioned earlier some of the local destinations, we at the hotel sales and marketing segue ko rin that we will be launching once again our annual September online sale where we will promote not only Boracay but also other destinations like in Batangas, in Bohol, Palawan, and also Cebu. And this is an opportunity for the hotels to once again promote their services and product at very affordable prices.
Okay, now going back to the list of the DOT, enable cohesive, comprehensive digitalization and connectivity. I will be going to Boracay next month, and I had to talk to one of your members that nakiusap kami na please pwede ho bang mag-squatter sa coffee shop ninyo para makapag-programa for 1 hour because the connectivity on Boracay, in Baguio, in many places is a nightmare. What is the what are the industry players planning to do about this? Kasi you know, we are now in the era of digital nomads, the tourists, and especially the younger generation. I have seen this time and again. Meron bang internet? How fast are the internet? Oh, forget that place. That place is so prehistoric. We're not going there. We'll just go somewhere else.
Well, I super agree with you, Sir Cito. In fact, that has replaced breakfast as the number one concession or requirement for travelers to have a reliable and quick internet, not only for business guests, but even for leisure, because the younger guests are really demanding for it. But yes, we have naman several suppliers now of internet, but I guess that what needs to be addressed are the far-flung places like Boracay and other areas. Here in Manila, well, in most of the hotels here have 1 or 2 providers, just in case one runs down, and we have a backup. But I'm not so certain about the other local, the other provinces if they have that, reliable connection. But I really push that it should be addressed.
Yeah, Jojo, are you guys going to push for that? Because the IG generation, instante. Kasi kailangan nilang matapos nilang gamiting photographer yung boyfriend nilang milyonaryo, they need to upload immediately. I mean, it's insane. Okay? Yeah. This is the time when I heard, yan, IG boyfriend yan. Anong IG boyfriend? Instagram boyfriend. Ano yun? Tigakuha para ma-upload sa Instagram. Joncho, in all seriousness, are you guys gonna push for this? Because tourists and digital nomads are saying, we're not going unless you put it up. And I think Vietnam ba yun, bro, na nagsabi, na nag-open yung kanilang visa for digital nomads. There was one ASEAN country.
Yeah. Well, to a certain extent, meron din dito during the pandemic, yung tinatawag nating workation, no? People station themselves in places like Boracay for a month, 2 months. In fact, some of them have been there for over a year. Sabi nila, dito na lang muna ako magtatrabaho. And there are people who set up like that. Even in Siargao na medyo, di ba, you would think spotty na yung mga internet connections sa atin doon. And this is something that we've been talking about them for years. Kasi nga, because of the marketing potential of Instagram, as you mentioned. That's one of the best ways to promote your destination is pag pinost kagad nila yung picture nila with the IG boyfriend. Maganda kung okay yung data mo, but if you don't have data, matatagalan yon. But the thing is, we can talk about it with the DOT, but then the DOT has to talk about it with the DICT or whatever government.
What about a campaign that you and the hotel marketing group and the tourism sector directly pushes to the public? Kasi alam mo, pag may public pressure, may nangyayari. To be honest, in the past administration, the DICT was never under pressure to do this relative to tourism kasi lahat naman tayo naka-pandemic lockdowns. But now, we are competing with the ASEAN neighbors to get digital nomads. We will be competing with the ASEAN neighbors to get the IG generation. And even in the Philippines, Many destinations that are beautiful in the Philippines are not going to benefit because they don't have the cell sites and the internet.
Yeah.
Well, that's a very good suggestion, Sir Cito. We'll definitely push for that. And, I think, yeah, it really should be a priority if we are to push this tourism sector.
Okay, what one thing that would you want to happen as a professional in the hotel industry, having your MBA background, etc.? What is the one thing that you would really want to see happen in this new administration?
Okay. I hope that aside from the things that we've discussed, I'll push for continued support on the training of our hoteliers. Right now, one of the challenges that we've been facing is the manpower. With the reopening of all the tourism industries, a lot of openings. There are a lot of openings in the hotels, and it's a challenge to find a perfect match. So even if they graduated from HRM, they still lack some training. So I hope DOT has been doing that, and I hope they will continue to do that, DOT and TPB, to support us with the trainings.
Yeah, Jojo, that's a good thing good point from Tet, because I think you are a lecturer at Enduran, Jojo.
Well, I used to be.
Okay, you used to be, and I wish I could become a lecturer again, because that is a common complaint, that people graduate but they don't have the practical experience. They don't have the nawala yung mga internship, and then people in the industry like yourselves are not readily available as mentors. Is there a possibility for the DOT, the tourism sector, to come together para kayo na mismo magturo? Kasi this is, armchair tourism mentors are useless. Sorry.
Yeah.
Unless you have been on the beach carrying a tray with 3 fingers, okay, and walking 50 meters, you don't know what it's about. Okay, so your inputs on that, Jojo?
Well, that was one of the reasons why I chose to be a lecturer sa Enduran, was kasi the same complaint. Sabi ko, parang ano ba itong mga lumalabas sa mga eskwela? So I took it upon myself to be part of the solution. So I started to teach. Then, to a certain extent, there are certain organizations within the tourism industry that do teaching and training naman. Ang problema lang talaga is that time, because of the circumstances now wherein we have to get up from where we were in the pandemic. Priority muna talaga namin is to get our businesses back in shape before we do other things. But kung kaya naman, kung talagang may oras kami, and it's really important, kami in the private sector, we're acting as trainers.
Yeah, because Joey Concepcion did that for his group. They put up Go Negosyo. It continues to run. It has produced 1 Secretary of Trade. It has produced 1 Presidential Advisor. And noon nga, tinanong ko si Joey, pare, tatakbo ka ba, Senador? Sabi niya, no. I have no political ambition. This is simply something that supports business as well. So, is there a possibility for you guys to put up a similar group to Go Negosyo in the tourism sector?
Well, we can certainly do that. Yun na nga, it's just a matter of people who are willing, and more importantly, are also confident to be teachers. Not everyone is born to be a mentor. Not everyone is born to be a teacher. So, although marami kami sa industriya, marami din sa amin yung feeling, wag na lang, hindi, yung iba na lang, ganon. Kasi it takes a certain kind of courage to teach, to mentor people. So, but yeah, certainly it can be done. I have an idea in the back of my mind right now, which, later on, maybe I'll discuss with you in private, along those lines. Na it should be a private sector initiative already.
Yes.
Na wag tayong magreklamo na ganito yung mga lumalabas sa eskwela. Let's be the solution na turuan natin sila kung ano yung dapat nilang gawin, ano yung practicalities.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, Jojo, same question that I asked Ted. What would be the one thing you want to happen?
What ang dami.
Hindi, yung pinaka-urgent, as I
The
always
most
tell my
urgent,
friends,
yeah,
find
yeah.
out what you hate the most, and that is probably your calling.
Yeah. For me, probably the number one priority would be the ease of accessibility to enter the Philippines. Kasi we're still excluding a big market as far as our international
Have
travelers
you
are
ever
concerned.
bothered to find out why? And how is it done that we exclude a large market, and why?
Alam mo, and in all honesty, no, without being offensive to anyone, some people that I talk to in the appropriate departments, kahit sila hindi nila may paliwanag, basta sasabihin nila, kasi ganito na yung naging rule eh. Ayaw tanggalin ni ganito. So I'm like, anong sense niyan? So, again, I'll use India as an example. No? India now has over how many? 1 billion people, and they're dying to come to the Philippines to visit. Ang problema, ang hirap kumuha ng visa because they're not visa-free coming into the Philippines eh. So, in a year, how many people give up on traveling to the Philippines because it's such a hassle to get a visa?
Okay, but who are high income, high spending customers? From what country are there na nagkakaroon pa ng restriction on visas?
Wala naman. Pretty much the long-haul markets like Europe, US, Canada, of course, they're free to come in and go. But the markets like India, the lower spending markets, become important in times of yung tinatawag nating low to shoulder season. Yan yung mga filler markets natin. So when the long-haul markets start to taper off, dyan na papasok yung mga Asian markets natin. And, India being one of the bigger markets,
Is that proven statistically that India, if you open the doors, come in?
Well, I tell you what, from practical experience, we get so many inquiries from India. My company alone gets so many inquiries from India in a year. Ilan lang yung natutuloy kasi nahihirapan silang mag-apply eh. So you're easily talking for my company alone. You're probably talking about 1,000 tourists per year.
I can only the only speculation I can make is maybe in the last 2 years, it was simply because of the problem with COVID.
Yeah.
And prior to that, it was really a problem of screening, filtering who were real tourists and who were potential runners or people who were going to stay illegally. Anyway, Tet, you seem to have to, you wanted to say something before we close the interview.
Well, just to add, I think the travel will surely come back but it should be with a new value proposition centered on a safe and secure travel.
Okay, and Jojo, your last words, please, or final statement. Hindi last words.
Parang may alam ka. No, I think my last words would be our pinaka wish list is really to have tourism be treated as the economic driver that it is. Whereas maybe in the past few years, sige, tawagin mo ng glamour industry, but I think in the last 2 years prior to the pandemic, we've shown the effects of tourism and what it can do for an economy. So sana pagtuunan talaga ng pansin. The appropriate attention should be given to tourism.
Okay. Well, we have all worked so hard for the tourism sector and tourism itself to be recognized as a economic driver through so many administrations. We kept pushing and pushing, and we finally got that recognition in the last several administration, the last 2 administration, or 3 actually, from GMA to Aquino to Duterte. We got that, and we are hoping that at the end of the day, all these efforts will not be wasted, but instead would actually be even elevated by the incoming Secretary Cristina Frasco, and let us all pray for God to give her wisdom. Thank you very much, Jojo. Thank you very much, Tet.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and that's our interview for today. As I pointed out, let us pray for the incoming Secretary of DOT, and let us pray that tourism will really pick up, because more than anything, ladies and gentlemen, for me, local tourism is one of the best instruments or means to spread money all over the country, spread wealth, equalize economics, etc., and help the nation. Okay, let's go to our closing blessing for the week. And it comes from the book of Psalm 77, verse 11 to 13. I will call to mind the deeds of the Lord. I will remember your wonders of old. I will meditate on all your work and muse on your mighty deeds. Your way, O God, is holy. What God is great as our God. And I chose this verse for today to remind you to look back on all our blessings. We have survived so many challenges. We have overcome so many obstacles, and God has always delivered. He has never failed. He has never been unfaithful. Please continue to pray for everyone. God bless all of you, and keep it here on One News PH.